Hello, my name is Madison Baker, and I'm from Section 2 of Professor Briggs' Poly 330 class. I'd just like to start out by saying, at first, I really struggled with picking a topic and sticking with that topic. I had plenty of ideas for different research questions, but when it came to formulating theories, hypotheses, and tests for those questions, I had a really hard time. However, after a long period of trial and error, I was finally able to land on a question that really sparked my interest and has inspired me to finally begin developing my paper on the effect of multinational corporations on state sovereignty. My research question is as follows. Does the presence of multinational corporations within a state affect that state's perception of their own sovereignty? In other words, will a state feel as though their authority to govern themselves is being hindered by the presence of a multinational corporation? I feel as though analyzing this question will offer a little insight into the growing world of multinational corporations and the effects that these entities are starting to have on the rest of the world, specifically on these principles of government and what states consider to be of value. In my introduction, I will start by explaining the growth of multinational corporations in a world of globalization and how states are beginning to adjust to these changes. This will highlight the significance of my topic and how my work will contribute to the changes that are being made within the field. Next, I will define what sovereignty means, looking at presented definitions and how they differ, and explaining how I intend to define sovereignty, as well as the perception of sovereignty within my research. I will then introduce my research question, followed by a short look into the differences that appear between developing and developed states. However, this last section might be pushed in my theory section for organizational purposes. In my literature review, I will be analyzing articles that will dissect the basis of information, different concepts surrounding multinational corporations and their effects on states, general knowledge about sovereignty, defining developed versus developing countries, and how these various definitions are similar or different to the ones that I have formed, and other theories that may appear within the same realm of MNCs and their effects on developing and developed countries. With articles such as Impact of Multinational Corporations on Developing Countries by Shamima Ferdowsi and Irregular Armed Forces, Shifting Patterns of Commitment and Fragmented Sovereignty in the Developing World by Diane E. Davis, along with many others that will be included within my lit review. I plan to gain insight from these different perspectives in an effort to develop plausible research. That brings us to the theory section. My theory is as follows. The presence of multinational corporations within a developing state heavily infringes upon that state's perception of their own sovereignty. However, the presence of multinational corporations within a developed state only slightly affects that state's perception of their own sovereignty. This is a theory that is concrete, falsifiable, and parsimonious. Within my theory section, I intend to dive more deeply into all of the concepts that were mentioned in my introductory section, address any theoretical mechanisms that may appear, such as the idea that other factors might come into play when looking at a state's perception of their own sovereignty. Further discuss the implications of the growth of multinational corporations and how this impacts these states differently. My hypothesis is that developing states with a high presence of multinational corporations are more likely to feel a lack of sovereignty than developed states with a high presence of multinational corporations. And I'm still working on the details of my test, but so far I plan to compose a survey study between several chosen states, half of them being developed and the other half being developing, both with a high presence of multinational corporations. I would present these states with a scale in which they'd be able to rate their perception of sovereignty and then compare that data between the two developed and developing states to get my results. I believe that if I were to complete my test, then I would find that my hypothesis would be true, in which developing states with high presence of multinational corporations would rate themselves as having a lower perception of sovereignty than developed states with high presence of multinational corporations. This is still a work in progress, but this is what I have so far. Let me know what you think, and thank you so much for listening.